Thank you very much for tuning in. So this is my weekly roundup video in which I talk about various topics. Let me just summarize very quickly what I'm going to talk about. So I did a poll on what people mean when they tell skeptics to be open-minded. I'm going to be talking about the results of that. I'm going to be talking about the concept of hope. We often hear religious people saying that their religion gives them hope. So I want to talk about that. A few words about Matt Dillahunty. And then my video, which I made 2 or 3 days ago on atheism as a religion and attempts by secularists to set up Sunday services, for example. And finally, I might have mentioned this before, but my best friend is a conspiracy theorist, so I'm going to be bringing you up to date on that situation. Okay, so here we go. Obviously, this is going to take about 20 minutes, and I hope you'll stay with me, but let's get going. Yeah, so my poll posted on July the 18th. I'll just read it out to you. When I talk to people who believe in things like tarot, astrology, auras, Reiki, spiritual healing, crystals, NDE, and other occult alternative therapy type claims and express some skepticism, I am told to have an open mind. What do you think is meant by this? And then I've given some options. Option A, do not automatically rule out every case of this type of claim. Option B, be ready to accept such claims to a very low standard of evidence. Or option C, other, say below. So far we've got option B on 64%. In other words, be ready to accept such claims to a very low standard of evidence. We've got option A, do not automatically rule out every case of this type of claim, 28%, and other 8%. I think maybe possibly that it probably should mean A. Now a lot of people may have voted A, believing that actually this is what it should mean. To be open-minded, do not automatically rule out any type of claim or any type of extraordinary claim. And I would certainly go along with that. I don't automatically rule things out, or at least I try not to. No matter how extraordinary, I will at least consider, and then whoever's making the claim, I will usually ask them for evidence. If they've got any evidence to offer, which potentially could prove what they're claiming, then I would go and do some research of my own. Now, I probably believe that in this particular case, it probably means B. So I agree with the 64%, be ready to accept such claims to a very low standard of evidence. Although I would think that the people who are saying that probably would not phrase it in quite the same way. They might say, don't apply your normal standards of scientific skepticism. So it amounts to the same thing, really. Now, I was talking to somebody well, not a long time ago, say 2 years ago, before I moved to Scotland. I was in a pub socializing with some friends that I know, and there's a lady that I get on quite well with, and she started talking about this amazing program that she's found, Ancient Aliens. And I asked, well, what are ancient aliens? And she told me, she said, oh, they built the pyramids. I said, really? I said, how do we know that? Oh, well, it's all been researched and proven. If you go and watch this program, Ancient Aliens, it will tell you all about how it's done. And I've got no doubt, having watched this program, that indeed aliens did build the pyramids. She said, they're all proper scholars, it's all been properly researched, and I'm 100% convinced this is the case. So she said, Stuart, I'll send you a link to the show, but I do urge you to keep an open mind. Now, this is just on the basis of me expressing some skepticism or some reasonable doubt. How do you know that this is the case? And she tells me to keep an open mind. And to be honest with you, she didn't really even know me that well, to the extent that I'm quite a critical skeptic and do want to do my own research on any claim that's made to see whether it's likely to be true or not. So I'm not going to accept something simply because somebody was impressed with a YouTube or Discovery Channel series. So I said, okay, of course, I'll be happy to take a look at the program. And I did go and research it. I watched one of the programs. I wrote down the names of some of those who were participating. They're not scholars. They're not Egyptologists. They're not. They are journalists who are interested in these stories. And obviously they're working for the production company. And they're trying to make a story out of it. And the more... In fact, to be fair on them, to be completely fair, this is amazing. And it makes me wonder whether she saw the same program. Well, she must have done, because she sent me the link. But when I listened very carefully to it, none of those journalists were concluding that aliens did indeed build the pyramids. They weren't concluding that. What they were doing was they were asking questions like, how did they get the pyramids to align with true north? How did they perform these amazing geometrical feats? How did they move the stones? What techniques of engineering did they use to build these amazing structures when, at the same time across the world, nobody was remotely capable of doing the same thing? None of them claimed that aliens actually built these pyramids. Of course, I only watched one program, but nevertheless, just to say that no, they're not scholars. I don't know why she thinks that, and they're not claiming that. The name of the series is Ancient Aliens. Maybe later on they start to say, well, you know, we can't really figure out how it was done by men. So maybe there were some aliens. We found some strange drawings in caves, etc., that look like they could be alien spacecraft, and maybe this is what's happened. I don't know. I didn't watch all of them, but watching one was enough for me to realize they're not Egyptologists, they're not experts, and it's a sort of sensationalized kind of program. And even if they are arguing that we don't know how they could have built these pyramids, it amounts to an argument from ignorance. And there's no confirmation at all that there's intelligent life in the rest of the universe, bar us. So the idea that aliens came in ancient times and built these structures, it's just fanciful thinking with no proper evidence to back it up. Now, I did not come back to her. I saw her again a few weeks later, and I decided that I would not say anything unless she brought the topic up. As it happened, she never did bring the topic up, and I very carefully decided not to talk about it again. Because look, I mean, if she enjoys believing this kind of thing, if she enjoys the programs and the entertainment of it all, I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. I've got no points to prove over her. So if she wants to believe it, that's fine. If she asked my opinion, I would say I did look at one program, and I would just point out, by the way, they're not scholars. They're journalists who are very much interested in this type of thing, but they're not experts in the field as such. And the program that I watched, they did not claim that ancient aliens built the pyramids. And if they did claim that, they had no good reason to claim it, because even if we didn't know how they built the pyramids, it's no reason to postulate, there's no reason to posit super advanced alien civilization visitors to the planet that did it. But, by the way, I did research on Egyptology, and they worked out how the pyramids were built, the engineering behind it. They even worked out how they managed to align with true north, even if they couldn't see the North Star. It's absolutely amazing. But don't take credit away from the ancient Egyptians for building the pyramids. It's absolutely amazing. And nobody's taking credit away from the Romans and the Greeks for what they did. So why take credit away from the ancient Egyptians? Okay. Yeah, just briefly on that. I got into a situation today where I was presented with what I thought was a real-world, fairly interesting claim. I wouldn't say extraordinary, but when I was out and around, I sat down outside a pub and I had a drink to cool myself down. Quite a hot day today. And there was an old man there. I raised my glass to him and said cheers, and I had a bit of a chat with him. And it's funny, he started off saying, it's nice talking to you. I will stay away from religion and politics. And I said to him, well, I don't really tend to talk religion and politics either, unless somebody particularly wants to and wants to know my opinion. And as it happened, he had some quite strong opinions on some aspect of politics, and he made a claim about economics, which I said to him, I was probably a little bit strong in what I said. I was a bit dismissive, and I said, oh, that sounds to me like the kind of propaganda I would expect from. And he said, no, it's not propaganda, you know, that's what they all say. And I realized actually I was wrong to say that. I was being a bit too dismissive. So I said to him, I apologized to him. I said, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, I shouldn't have dismissed your claim like that. I'm still not convinced that your claim is actually correct. However, it might be. And the only way I can find that out is for me to go out and do my own research, because I don't just accept claims of this type from people that I meet, you know, in pubs or anywhere. I like to go out and do my own research to confirm it. So I said to him, I will go and research it, and I will find out whether your claim is true. And if it is true, the next time I see you at this pub, I will come to you and tell you so. And not only that, I will buy you a steak dinner. I will actually buy you a steak dinner of your choice. And so I left it at that, and I had to get away to catch a bus. So yeah, you know, obviously it's best to apply my skeptical method and not rule things out. So just coming back to being open-minded, no, I heard his claim, and by the way, I checked out his claim, and it is not true. I mean, you could make it true if you massaged figures and you went back far enough and you looked at certain aspects of the economics he was talking about. You could, just like you can do anything with figures and make them say almost whatever you want within reason. And his side of the argument was doing that, and it's been exposed. But if I do see him, I will say to him, no, I don't agree with you. I could see how the figures could be spun to say that, but the research I've done suggests that that's stretching it a bit, so I don't agree with you. But yeah, so it just comes back to my open-minded point, that not only in supernatural claims and that type of thing, in terms of being skeptical and only accepting something on convincing evidence, the same goes for other claims. And I let myself down briefly there when I dismissed and said, oh, that's propaganda. But then I came back and said, no, actually, I'm sorry. So, you know, I kind of redeemed myself as a skeptic, and I did check out his claim, and his claim proved to be false. Okay, so let's move on now to hope. So talking about hope, yes. So occasionally I've asked Christians or Jehovah's Witnesses, you know, why do we need your religion? And they've said to me, because it gives you hope. And I thought this was quite a sort of vague thing. And when pressed, if you ask a lot of religious people, what do you mean by hope exactly? They said, well, generally hope for good things in the world, but also hope for beyond this world, in terms of what's going to happen to you when you die. So I was thinking about different kinds of hope, because, yeah, I mean, Matt Dillahunty has talked about hope being a reasonable expectation for a desired outcome. Yeah. Well, that's one kind of hope. That's a hopeful hope. I mean, that's based on some evidence that you could have a good outcome. I mean, for example, the hope that inflation in the UK will fall next year is, shall we say, supported by the economic data which is currently coming out. Let's say that would be a good case of justified hope. Yeah. Then there's unjustified hope. For example, my hope that my football team, and you know, I sort of fairly passively follow a football team, my hope that my football team in the UK will somehow get out of the First Division, League Division 1, and get into the next league. I've got hope that will happen. But my hope is not realistic, because they've put together a bad run of results. And so although I hope that they get promoted next season, I haven't got a realistic hope that that's going to happen because the evidence doesn't support it. It's a kind of hopeless hope. Okay. So yeah, so this sort of general hope. I have hope in my life, for example. What do I have hope in my life for? I suppose I have hope in my life that it's going to be a good, productive, happy life. I've got hope for that, and that the people who are close to me will have the same, and that the world, in the world, there will be less suffering and more good. I suppose that's a kind of hope. And again, it may be supported by the evidence. I may have reasonable expectations to support that hope. I may have reasonable evidence to support my hope that those good outcomes will arrive, that there will be a good outcome for well-being for not just me but other people as well. So that's a sort of general hope. And then it's really just about, well, I think that kind of hope, you can have it even if there's no evidence, I suppose, to back it up. In a way, a bit like my hope that my football team's going to be promoted, even though there might not be good evidence. I can still have hope that the world is going to be a better place, even though everything seems to be going wrong. You can still have that hope. That is a kind of general, abstract hope. But then you could have a more specific hope, which may not be supported by the evidence. So hope is a kind of fairly multidimensional, multifaceted psychological state or emotion, shall we say. But I think with religious hope, from what I've gathered from Christians and Muslims, etc., it's more of a hope connected with probably what's going to happen when they die, a long-term hope. And it's probably more connected with how the world is going to align with their religious values in the sort of medium to long term. And in a way, it's sort of like my hope that there will be more goodness and well-being in the world, even though I'm not religious. So, well, there are some musings from me. I would be glad to hear you guys, especially you atheists. Do you have anything which is anything like the kind of hope that religious people talk about? I'd be interested in that. Obviously, if you don't believe in the supernatural, you'll be ruling out an afterlife, so you won't have any hope in that. And I've got no hope in an afterlife. Personally, I've got absolutely zero hope. Do I hope that there's an afterlife? Well, I suppose in a way I do, because it would mean I get to live on in some way, but whether that's a good thing or bad thing, I don't know. It's difficult for me to conceive of how it could be a really good thing, because without my body, if there's a soul, and I'm going to be a spirit floating around for all eternity, I don't know whether that's really something to hope for. So, okay, I'll move on. Oh yeah, so Matt, he made this statement, and he's made it before. I did a poll on it. He's made this boast before, that if he could be tortured horribly and then killed, in order to end world suffering, hunger, etc., permanently, and it could be proven to him that this would be the case, he would accept a horrible death, a horrible, long, drawn-out, torturous death, in order to achieve that. Now, it's very difficult, and Matt has actually admitted on a previous show when he made this boast that it's easy to make, because it's incredibly unlikely that he will have to prove that he's as good as his word. And in that sense, it's an easy boast to make, and to sit back and take the accolades about what a good person you are. Personally, I would make no such boast. I can tell you the opposite. I would not be prepared to do it. I would not be prepared for that, no. And, you know, I'll just tell you the truth. If somebody came to me with a branding hot iron and wanted to brand, I don't know, good man on my forehead, good man for ending world hunger, and I was told that that would end world hunger, I wouldn't take that either. So there you are. You can make your judgment on me. Am I a bad person? I don't know, but at least what I've said, you can really believe that that is the case. Whereas somebody claiming they're prepared to sacrifice themselves in an excruciating death to end world hunger, it's up to you really whether you believe that or not. I mean, with Matt, he said that he would do it, and it would make me wonder, if he cares so much about world hunger and suffering, why he's not doing more in his life now, when he doesn't have to face that kind of outcome, that kind of sacrifice. Why he's not out there in soup kitchens, why he's not out there trying to raise money to help the poor, etc., etc., etc. Why, if he cares to that extent that he'd be prepared for an excruciating death to end world hunger, why he doesn't really seem to be doing anything at all to alleviate even a tiny amount of suffering. And no, I don't count debunking religion or talking people into atheism as alleviating suffering, because we don't know really whether it does. There's evidence to suggest that people who are in religion suffer less than those who are not in it. So that's debatable. I'll leave that one with you. Let's see, what else is there? I'll get on. I'm going a bit too far with this. Atheism as a religion. Yeah, I enjoyed doing this video. So I've had people saying to me, you know, atheism's just another religion, which seemed bizarre to me. And on what basis is atheism a religion? Well, you've got your leaders, you've got Richard Dawkins, you've got Matt Dillahunty, you've got Sam Harris, etc. So you've got your prophets, you've got your doctrines, you've got critical thinking, you say you're free thinkers, you have communities. So what's the difference? Well, the difference is we don't believe in anything supernatural. We don't have beliefs. We don't have belief in anything that we can't really prove with evidence to a fairly high degree of confidence. So, okay, if you want to say that my atheism's a religion, that's fine. But I don't believe in any supernatural entities. And I try to restrict my belief only to those things which can be established with proper convincing evidence. So that's fine. There was this professor who was widening out the definition of religion, saying that, you know, a lot of it's about communities and binding together. The problem with that is it's too big a net, because then you get people who are joining athletics clubs, football fans, etc., who have communities. They're all religions too. If you make religion too broad, it loses its usefulness. And for me, religion is about community. It is about a lot of those things which bind us together. But crucially, there are supernatural beliefs attached to it, certain doctrinal beliefs, which are underpinned and authorized either by some kind of deity or something supernatural. There's some supernatural element in a religion, and in my worldview, there isn't. But if you want to call it a religion, I don't care. It's about what I believe and what I don't believe. It's not about the labels. But I did find it very amusing to watch that atheists are getting together. Apparently, those communities are not doing so well because, as this Christian priest said in an article I read, what really binds religious communities together, in fact, is the belief in a God, that they're the chosen ones. That's what really gets people into the churches. And secular gatherings, Sunday assemblies, etc., they just won't get enough people to adhere to them because they haven't got that same appeal, that sort of feeling that we're God's chosen ones. It's quite a big selling point. Finally, yeah, so my best friend, he's still my best friend despite everything. I've known him for 35 years. He's been very good. You know, he's been a very good friend. He's given me advice. He's lent me money when I needed it. I've paid him back, of course. And he's been very supportive. He's been great to talk to over the years. I've helped him out on occasions. He's helped me out. But unfortunately, he did become a conspiracy theorist. My fault. I gave him a book by David Icke in the 90s. Never should have done that. But then again, I think he was probably fertile ground for conspiracy thinking anyway. He always did used to, in the 90s, he used to talk about the Freemasons and that kind of thing. So I think he was going in that direction anyway. I don't think that David Icke book I gave him did it, but it kind of accelerated the process. So yeah, I stopped phoning him 6 months ago. We lost touch because once he starts going on a telephone conversation, honestly, he can't get a word in, and he's making preposterous claims one after the other. And I decided to get back in touch with him a few weeks ago, and I thought he'd probably realize there was no point in us discussing our worldviews because they're too different. And we had some really good conversations. We had great conversations for 3 times in a row, and I thought, oh, this is pretty good. It's just like old times. But he couldn't keep it up. Nope. We had a chat the other night. It went on for about 2 hours, and I don't know how he got into it, but he got into his COVID conspiracy, how the military were experimenting with viruses, and it's all part of the grand conspiracy to create vaccines which will reduce the population to about 500 million. So he went non-stop, and then he went into climate denial. He doesn't deny that the climate's warming up. What he denies is that man and CO2 is responsible. He pointed to the deserts. Why do deserts still get cold if the greenhouse effect is a thing? Why do they still get cold at night? Why are they still getting freezing cold? If the greenhouse effect is a thing, that shouldn't be happening. I couldn't answer him on the spot because I didn't have the data. I hadn't done the research, but I said to him that I would look into it and get back to him. So the conversation ended finally, and I did look it up. The explanation was much simpler than I thought it would be. The explanation that the reason why global warming is not affecting the deserts at night is the reason being that there is virtually no moisture in the air, and sand is very bad at retaining heat, but it's good at creating heat when the sun starts shining in the morning. First of all, because there's no moisture in the air, the sun's rays hits at maximum force, hits the sand absorbs the heat. The desert gets hot incredibly quickly very early in the morning, but because there's no moisture to retain the heat from the sun during the day, and because sand does not retain heat very well, as soon as the sun disappears, the heat that was in the sun vanishes very quickly. It goes up and just it becomes very cold without the sun there to warm up the sand. The desert gets cold very quickly, but it's because of lack of moisture, and also obviously because of the sand. Whereas obviously where I live in the UK, there's plenty of moisture in the air to retain the heat, and the geology is different. Soil, clay, etc. keeps heat much better than sand does. So anyway, of course I sent him an email and I gave him all that information, and I haven't heard from him since. But I'm staggered, absolutely staggered, that such an intelligent person, because college lecturer in a scientific subject, he's retired now, repeated that to me, and it sounds like he maybe just picked it up off some climate change denial website, and he did not bother to check. He did not bother to do the research and check the science on that, and he repeated it to me. I can't trust a single word he says on anything, and consequently we've now lost touch again. So now he's one that says to me, Stuart, coming back to the beginning, you should keep an open mind about those things. Keeping an open mind does not mean accepting disproven claims or claims which can't be supported by the evidence. having an open mind means not dismissing claims immediately. It means assessing claims fairly without confirmation bias, or with as little confirmation bias as you can possibly manage. Assessing the claims fairly and looking at the evidence for them and drawing a conclusion from that. That's what having an open mind is. Not accepting claims on virtually no evidence or poor evidence. Okay, that's all for now. Hope you enjoyed that, and I'll be back with some more videos very soon. Bye for now.